Hi, this is my quick blog post on how to produce exercises. And so, this was a request we got on one of our forums. I wanted to really show it you, all of you. And so, the idea is that I wanted to run you through how we used a program card, which I call the Napkin program card. And so, the interesting. The Napkin program card. And essentially the Napkin program card was simple. What I wanted to do was I wanted to produce a way of helping you produce exercises. And so split this into three sections. And so section one, what we were looking at was a base movement, which would be something that people would normally call an exercise. And then alongside the base movement, what I wanted to do was say, I kind of call it the 3D mallet, but variables you can change. And then finally specifics. So specifics you can't change. And so a specific you can't change. So a specific that stays the same. It would be, for example, you're trying to build an exercise for a runner. You decide on you're going to pick jumps. Your variable changes are going to be multiple directions, but generally traveling forward. So you could be going forward and right, forward and left, but your variable will be two-step forward changes, and your specifics would be always out of sync legs, always out of sync arms, always out of sync sagittally. And so the first part of the napkin card would look like that. Base, variable changes, things that you want to change to encourage the body to learn the skill of the movement by putting it in different environments but keeping constants around. And then the specifics, and that's the places where you want the skill to be recognized by the body. So the out of sync movements, the shallowness of the land, the high knee lift after landing, all those things you want to keep all the time, and they're consistent to perhaps the run. You don't want to do more than 2 or 3 steps in a direction before you straighten up to running straight on, because that's unusual. But your variables, you could change the floor you're running on, you could change the amount of feedback you're getting visually, you could change the fatigue level you are before you start, and you could change the angles that you're running at. So the first part of the napkin program card, which you'll find within all our courses, sort of follows this 3-point variables. And so the first part is really about that. This is our sort of motor learning. So this section here is for motor learning. And so sort of skill development. And so the second part you need to think about, or the second part we looked at, was sort of just the work you needed to go through in order to get the physical change you wanted. And so within that we have time, which some people call reps. We have sets, rest, and then we have loading system. So loading system, and that's all about getting in the right work and the quality work. Now reps are pretty self-explanatory, as in reps are reps. It's how many you're going to do or how long. The body kind of responds to time. I prefer to use time, get the person working in the rhythm or the timing or the speed that they would in the sport that they want to carry over to, and then do it for the amount of time I want to use in order to elicit the energy system I'm after, or in the knowledge that there's never one energy system just in play, but sometimes one can be a little more predominant than the other. The sets were just to make sure that we get the volume of work in, the amount of time through their program. Plus, not everyone's training for a sport. This could be for a body change, and the sets allow me to play with the volume a little. Rest is obviously recovery to allow us to hit the predominant energy system if that's what we're after. And then the loading system is how you lay out the exercises. And so this is all about, do you want to run a circuit, so one after another? Do you want to try and elicit some nervous system response? Do you want to go really heavy and then into power in the hope that you get a better recruitment of muscle straight after the heavy set, and that helps you to move quicker or more powerfully straight after? Do you want to pre-exhaust a muscle? That kind of thing. That's kind of cool because you can use the loading system in order to help with the motor learning program, and that's kind of quite a cool carryover. And so that would all be about the work done. Then the final component of this Napkin program card that I needed to look at was to say, well, how are we gonna participate in this exercise? So it's what makes it the exercise, and so otherwise you're just doing the thing. So what makes it an exercise? And really, this could also be called rule the tool. And so by this, I mean, how are you going to affect the environment, and how are you going to affect the load? And this is where sort of you bring equipment into the process. And so as you're doing this, you're considering, well, what kind of things do I want to get out of this training? And so it might be that I want to use an environment tool to change the variables, or I want to use a load tool to change the variables, or I want to use the load tool to make it possible to get in the time, or to make the time difficult enough to get things to happen. And so my goal for you at the end of this is that you get to the end of this Napkin program, and then you start to say, right, well, that worked for me, so now the program starts to write itself. Because you could have the same base exercises for every program. You could perhaps write 12 exercise selections that have got the same base exercises, like squats and lifts and jumps and whatever, and then everything else in the program is up for changing, and that's what makes the program specific. And that's how I want you to work with a Napkin card. So my point here is that once you have that, then the next thing you want to be looking at, I'm just going to attempt to see how good I am at deleting this kind of stuff. Just bear with me. So once you have that, then it comes to the question, well, how do we change this? And I'm glad you're sharing this experience of learning to use this program. If you're one of the people who are taking us up on the offer to be the first people to see our training in tension course, which, and this is a blatant, let me put it here, look, let me just start it here, look, marketing plug, oh, looks good, here we go, look, marketing plug, okay, just a quick one before I get back onto the stuff. If you're one of the people who are going to take up our offer to get the faster branded True Fit, we're not allowed to call it suspension kit, it's a pair of straps that support you. I think support's a better word for it anyway. If you're going to do that program, get those sent out for you, then you'll see me using this a lot on our course material, because I want you to experience learning this for real. I don't want you to see a script or a plan kind of looking experience. I want you to see how we built these things. I want you to be the trainer you should be, which is the one that gets the opportunity to see it all. Although you probably have a far better way of deleting all this stuff than I do. It's comical. So what I'm really looking at now is to say, right, well, so we built this program. We've got this program layout, but really, what am I looking at doing when it comes to building the actual exercise itself? And so if we take the exercise itself, we start with a base exercise. And so a base exercise is essentially one that the base exercise defines the movement. So it could be anything, and it could be related to your sport, it might not be, but let's, for argument's sake, say examples could be a squat, could be a lunge, jump, anything you like could go in there, and it could be related to your sport or not. Then the idea is that the next thing you can look at, and the first people to put me onto this was probably the Grey Institute, but if you look at a start position, and you could look at a finish position if you wanted to. And I'd say what you're doing here is you're affecting angles at joints and weight distribution. So the way we do this is also the way we'd have a target system. So you can then have a target of movement. And I'm going to show you that in a second on here. But you can have a target for movement for what happens during this base exercise. So let me give you an example. The target for movement could be horizontal, or it could be height, and the combination will get you somewhere. But that you might say, right, I want to take the base exercise, which is a squat. In a squat, the thing that moves is the pelvis, and I want the pelvis to travel. I want it to travel back and right, and so it's already going down to up, so that's fine, because it has to go down to up because it's a squat. So squat, pelvis, back and right. And then a start position. For your start position, if you wanted the client in a split stance, so let's draw our client look in a split stance. I hope you're appreciating this art. And so in this, let's say the left foot is in front of the right. Then we would say, depending on where you want this weight distribution. So if you want the weight on the front, then we'd say start position, left foot forward. If you want the weight distribution on the back, we'd say right foot back. And if you want it in the middle, we'd say left forward, right back. And so that's how we get our start positions, and this allows us to get any foot position in any way we want. And so we do all this using a sort of chart. So just try this as a way of deleting everything. See how this works. So we do this by saying, let's have a look at our goal. And so we've already said there's certain things we don't want to change, and then we'll say there's other things that we do want to change. So for example, we might now say we want to produce let's say a jump And what we want to do is we want to produce a jump for football or soccer. Just let me put a little star here, look. Or not. Let me put a little star here and just say, potentially I'm talking about some marketing stuff again. So grab your book for just a second. But let's say you're taking a soccer move or and you're looking for a jump, which is one of the things we do on our soccer program that you can pick up, or football program if you're English. I imagine I'm going to get some stick for using that word. So if you're looking at a jump, you might say, right, well, what we want to do is we want to take a jump and we want to make it like soccer. So we're gonna first of all say, let's do this with our program. So we're gonna say fixed. It's a 1 foot takeoff. So it's 1 foot takeoff, and it's normally while running. So there are fixed things. And so you actually normally land on 1 or 2 feet. So we're going to start and we're going to say, right, our base exercise is going to be a hop. And so it's going to be one leg to one leg. And what we're going to say is it's fixed 1 foot to 1 foot while running. So we know that the base exercise is a hop, and the fixed motion is 1 foot takeoff while running. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, what can we change? What can we hit with a 3D mallet and not affect things? So we know it's always going to be running, and then there's going to be a takeoff. So for our vague stuff, what we're going to look for is we're going to look for height. And so what you might want to do is you might say, right, well, I want you to take the scale of height, and in this case, for height, usually we might say like knee or eye or something like that, but I'd say for this, if we're talking height, we're probably talking about the other knee coming through to produce that jump. So what we might say maximum, minimum, and you pick, and it might just be as vague as that, and I'm happy with vague like that. So maximum might give us maximum height, but put it as risk at injuring the opposition. It might be something you're on a warning for. Minimum might be because you're dragging your leg in order to give you the right timing to arrive at the ball. Then the next thing we've got to say is, well, how are we going to get in there, or what's our start and finish position? And so what we'd use is we'd use something, and again, it's really inspired by the Grey Institute initially, and then we kind of picked up the baton a bit and said, right, how can we take this straight into sort of a more sport type environment? And so what we might do here is we might say, right, well, let's take this floor map, and let's say we put our cross in there, so we have forward, back, we have right, we have left, and then we have intersections. So you have forward right, back right, back left, forward left. And then we'd say here, look, this is where you start. So this would be like short range. This would be medium range. And then anything out here will be maximum range. And then you can send people in and out of this. So you might say, right, what I want you to do is I'd like to see you move in from back left, jump, and then leave forward left. So you'll get in here, you'll jump, you'll probably land here somewhere, and then you'll get out that way. And the idea behind that is we've got all these multiple different directions we can move in, and there's all different things coming in at different heights for the person to hit. And obviously we could say as you do that, you're going to drive your opposite leg minimum distance, or you pick, or maximum distance. We could also put some kind of kink in the run. We could put an obstacle in the run. So as they come in, they're around and they're up and they're over. And that might be a good way of doing something that's related to a sport and, you know, how the individual wants to move. So that works if you're doing it for a sport, say. But let's say we're not. Let's say we just want to do something which is more based on just a regular everyday client, and we just want to give them some variables. Then what we might do is we might say, right, we want to give you some variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a base exercise. We're going to use that same map idea. I'm having a little bit of a nightmare rubbing this out. I'm not going to lie to you. There you go. So we're going to have a way of getting this so that we can say, right, well, what are we up to now with this client? And so we might say, well, they've come in and they want a bigger chest. We don't hear that often, eh? So let's say they've come in for that. So what we're going to say is, right, you've come in for a bigger chest. And what we're going to do is we're going to do base exercise. It's going to be a push. And by push, I mean bench press. So it's going to be a dumbbell bench press. So dumbbell bench press. So what I might do is I might say, right, well, what are the variables I don't want to play with? And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to say, right, I'm going to fix chest height this time, but I could change that another time. But I'm going to fix chest height just for safety on this first go, and that's it. That's all I'm going to fix. And then my vagues, what I'm going to do is change angles, and I'm going to do it on a wave set, so it's going to be really funky up on the first. So, you know, and I'm making these figures up, but I might say, right, on the first we're going to do a minute, and on the second we're going to do 45 seconds, and then on this third set we're going to do 30 seconds, and then we're going to do that again, and then we're going to go up to 45, and then we go up to 60. And what we're going to do is we're going to start saying, right, well, this is my funky zone. This is my funky zone out here. So I'm gonna play. I'm gonna have legs in the air and everything, and all the stuff that a strength conditioning person is going to tell me is rubbish. They're going to complain that we've gone too far, things are bad, it's the end of the world, and all that kind of stuff that you hear. I'm going to do that at the end and, you know, ruffle some feathers. And then in here, just at this point, I'm going to do something a lot more stable. And that allows me to get the weight, the resistance up. And then in my 30s, I'm just going to go old school traditional. And so it's just going to be as stable as possible. I nearly called it traditional. And so my idea here is that the important things is that I'm trying to make sure that I get through a threshold. So I need them to work harder than they normally would in order to get the body to start to adjust. But 2, I want them to get the feeling that they expect, because I want them to come back next time. And I want them to be motivated to eat well and all that kind of stuff. So that's important. And I imagine even in America they put a C after the E. And then the third thing is I want to kind of measure for them how well they did. So, you know, maybe out here it's important that I'm measuring how many. But maybe in here, in this bit here, I'm measuring how much. Now my variables with the push, so if we say, right, well, okay, that sounds good, but you've still not shown me how you're going to vary this up, then my variables, well, what have I got to play with? And I'd probably say in this case, because it's an exercise that's pretty rigid in form potentially, and there's some history behind it, I don't upset people like to move a lot of weight, then I might be saying things like this. I've got an opportunity here, and I could change the surface, so they could move from unstable to stable throughout their reps. And so obviously this is heavy, and this is for and this is like high reps, and that could be something I do. And I'm not going to say that's going to give you the best lift. I'm going to say it's going to recruit some different muscles. It's going to be fun to see how you get a reaction, and it's going to keep it varied enough to keep the client interested. I might play a little bit with planes. So I might say, look, as we look at the bench, here we go, we get to see some great drawings now. So they're on a bench, or I don't care, they could be on a Swiss ball, the floor, incline bench, whatever you like. Then what we could say is, you could aim both arms really wide if you wanted, which would probably reduce the amount of travel you do at the shoulder, but could be an interesting place to go. What you might do is then you might go narrow. I'm not really telling you anything that's rocket science here. And then you could say, right, what I want to do is my arms are going to go in a normal position, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate them out, or I'm going to rotate them in, and then I'm going to think about, I could do this arm, then this arm, or I could do both together, or I could do one moves as in one direction, as so I could do out of sync, and I could do in sync. And then of course the other side to this is, if I'm looking from the side at this, and so we're looking at our bench press guy, look at that, I'm going to put his knees up on a step just to be a bit more controversial. I don't really care where he puts them. But what you could say is, I want your hands to aim up high, your hands to aim at chest, your hands to aim down at waist. And what I'm not saying is this is the optimal exercise for growth of pectoral muscle. I'm not making any claims about hormone balance or anything like that. I'm saying I want to keep my client moving through all these variable ranges. I want them to learn the skill of resisting weights against all different angles. I'd like it if they're on their back on a bench. I don't particularly use them very often, but they could be on a Swiss ball if they like, or as I've drawn there, some kind of tomato item in blue, and they could be anywhere they want. But my point is, I've got all these things, I can move these limbs out. We could be on something where there isn't support here, we could be on something where there is support there. But my point is, if my goal is to improve the skill of the shoulder to hang on to this weight no matter what direction it comes at or what the other arm's doing, then I can change everything. If it was pure growth of the pectoral muscles, look at that, look. Pectoral muscles, I've drawn me, there's a slight belly there above them. If it's all about the pectoral muscles, then maybe you want to lean towards the traditional rather than come out towards the less traditional when you look at the volume across the set. But there's no reason you can't do any of that. Obviously you've also got incline on the bench. There's so much you could do. You don't have to load with the same kind of weights. You could go the bar, you could go the dumbbell. You start to rule the tool now. Why not use a cable one side and a dumbbell the other? And I went on a really good talk with a guy called Mark Slavin, and this was years ago, and he said, why don't you have the dumbbell here and connect it to the cable machine here, and then you've got maximum weight from the dumbbell at the bottom, and you've got maximum weight from the cable at the top. And so just things like that. And really, it's not, my concern isn't that. My concern was, the question I originally got asked was, how do you come up with so many exercises? And my solution here is, well, it's easy to come up with lots of exercises if you just play with planes and heights and distances and ranges and speeds and layouts, and you could go press up to press, and it's easy to do all that kind of stuff. What's hard is then making sure that all of this, I really want to scribble all over it, all of this fits the goal of your client. And that's where you'll get into your arguments. And I don't care, no exercise is bad, I don't care what anyone says. The only exercise bad is the one that injures the client or doesn't further the client towards their goal, even if the furthering them towards the goal is making sure that they don't go backwards so fast in their deterioration as a client as they get older. And so I hope that's answered a few questions. I hope I haven't gone on too long, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Hope it's constructive, and it'd be good to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks a lot for listening.